Congressman Landsman, thanks for joining us. What are your thoughts on what the president has asked for in terms of aid to Israel? And then what do you expect from the speaker when he introduces his legislation tomorrow, I believe, on aid to Israel?
So this is one of the most serious moments of my lifetime, in terms of what's happening here and the fact that we have to keep our government open and continue these investments in our families and our economy. It's a must do, and people are very worried about whether or not there's going to be a shutdown. And then there's the strength and support that our global partners need, whether it's Israel or Ukraine, Taiwan. This is about democracy and freedom, and making sure that our national security is not undermined because of these conflicts. And what the president has said, and Republicans and Democrats agree on, is that if you don't deal with these issues head on, it'll get worse and more expensive and more deadly. And so the president's supplemental needs to be taken up. Maybe the whole thing doesn't get passed in terms of the amount that the administration is requesting, but it needs to be taken up and it needs to be passed in a bipartisan way as quickly as possible.
Do you feel that many in Congress, many Republicans are asking for Ukraine to be split from Israel? How do you feel about that? And do you think that they should be done together at once like the president wants?
I believe they should be done together and quickly because both need our support. I think the question really has to do with how much and what's the oversight and how do we make sure that the dollars are going to the places we expect them to go. That, to me, is the debate. Everything else is political, and those who play politics with this are acting very dangerously. They're just being unserious in what is a very serious moment, and I think it's very worrisome that the speaker, this new speaker, in his first real act, decided to politicize aid to Israel. It's terrible, absolutely terrible.
When you say he's politicized it, what do you mean by that?
So instead of just passing Israel with Ukraine and border security, all of the things that we need to pass now, he's splitting them up, which is one thing. But on the Israel aid package, he's saying it's either Israel or funding the IRS and work to prevent billionaire tax cheats. And so, either we're going to help with the security of Israel and protect Jews and help end this war sooner rather than later, or in his case, he says, I'd rather ensure that our billionaires are protected. It's terrible politics. It's horribly political. And it sets a very bad precedent and emboldens our enemies.
If it came down to it and there was the only vote on the table you had was to pass aid for Israel and they weren't going to put any aid for Ukraine on the table, would you do it, or would you vote no, saying I want them together?
So I'm going to wait and see what happens this week, because there is still a chance that the speaker pulls this back. There are a lot of folks, including some Republicans, who are asking the speaker to not do this. Don't set this precedent. Emergency funding doesn't come with what's called a pay for, and certainly not a political one where you're trying to protect billionaires who don't want to pay all their taxes. This is aid for Israel in the middle of a war. And so those of us who are inclined to support aid to Israel, very eager to, want to hold off until we know for certain he's not going to pull the bill, because ultimately the Senate has to fix this, and the Congress, the House and the Senate, have to pass a bipartisan supplemental emergency funding bill that has support for not just Israel and Ukraine and this fight for freedom and democracy abroad, but also for the border.
So in short, you're accusing the speaker a little bit of playing politics and saying, if you want aid for Israel, you got to take it away from supplemental funding for the IRS and expanding the IRS's ability to investigate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and Republicans are too. I mean, this is something that Republicans across the country and in D.C. are very worried about. I mean, they saw this move by the Speaker, his first. The first move out of the gate was to take something very serious, like supporting Israel, and to politicize it with this offset, saying, hey, the money has to come from what was going to go to pay for holding billionaires accountable for paying all their taxes. And Republicans don't want to be put in this position, and the country shouldn't have to deal with this kind of political nonsense when we're dealing with something so complicated as the war between Israel and Hamas.
You mentioned the Speaker several times. What was your take on how he was finally chosen, and just your read of who he is at this point?
This has been very frustrating for those of us who want to do bipartisan work and who have been bipartisan, working across the aisle. I'm in a group called the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is 30 Democrats, 30 Republicans, and we meet every week, and we are working through a whole host of challenges, and we kept putting forward options to get a bipartisan partnership, a speaker in place, somebody who could help us govern, keep the government open. And we really wanted that to start with McCarthy. We had offered McCarthy multiple options so that he could govern effectively, and that required marginalizing the extremist, Matt Gaetz, and changing the rules so that Matt Gaetz couldn't have done what he did. McCarthy, unfortunately, did not want to do that. And my hope is that he'll change his mind, because Johnson is about as bad as it gets in terms of what Americans hate, including a lot of Republicans. His positions are so extreme and radical that we are very worried about a national abortion ban. We're very worried about the assault on gay marriage, potentially interracial marriage, the fact that he may not keep the government open, he may shut it down. And that if he's Speaker during a presidential election, he will not certify the winner if the winner is not somebody he voted for, and that is the beginning of the end of our democracy. So this is very serious.
I showed you this before, but your reaction to the latest reporting that he was involved in conversion therapy groups. He espoused that gay sex should be criminalized. Your thoughts on that?
It's horrible, very scary, and it's part of a trend in terms of these far-right extremists. Both parties have folks who are out there, right? The left has it, the right has it. The extremists on the far right, what makes them particularly dangerous right now is that they are deciding to use government to make decisions on our behalf. And people do not like that. Republicans don't like that. Democrats don't like it. Independents don't like it. Americans don't like that. That's not who we are. And for politicians to be like, well, we're going to make decisions about your health care. We're going to make decisions about who you can marry. We're going to make decisions about what happens in your bedroom. I mean, it's disgusting.
Okay. You also mentioned the potential looming shutdown. What do you see? I know what you want, but what do you see potentially happening in the next 2 weeks? And how likely is a government shutdown as you see it from your perch in Washington?
Well, hopefully we can get another continuing resolution, CR. Otherwise, the government will shut down on November 17th. I'll support that, though. CRs need to be clean, meaning that it's just a continuation of existing spending, and we get to a place where we have a budget which involves not just keeping the government open and making sure people are getting their paychecks, but it's protecting our economy and the economic growth that we are seeing. Why stop that unless you're doing it for political reasons? And then there are big investments in a whole host of projects in the city of Cincinnati, throughout Hamilton County and Warren County, that will not be made if they don't bring a budget to the floor. And we had a bipartisan budget agreement that I passed with or supported with 330 of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats. So we already agreed to it. It's time for us to pass a budget.
That was the one that passed in June.
Yeah.
That turned out that cost McCarthy his job pretty much. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, so we had the bipartisan budget agreement, and I supported that. And then, the far right, these extremists got mad at McCarthy, and so he pulled away from the agreement, which is unfortunate, if not outrageous. And then got a CR, a continuing resolution to avoid a shutdown. Every one of the Democrats voted with McCarthy to help him to avoid a government shutdown, except for one. So we were all there to help. And when his speakership, when they came after him, we said, because I have a good relationship with him, we went to Israel together, and you spend a lot of time on a trip like that. Look, let's change the rule so you don't have to deal with these 10, 15 extremists. And he didn't want to do it. And hopefully he'll change his mind.
But in that, how likely do you think a shutdown is?
My hope is that it's unlikely, and because it's so problematic, I will say I'm very nervous, not because there is a majority of folks who are okay with the shutdown. The majority of members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, in the House and the Senate do not want to shut down.
I think you see that when you see guys like Mitch McConnell coming out on the floor saying a government shutdown's horrible, right in advance of the last one, right?
So the numbers are on our side, on the side of the American people who also don't want to shut down. The challenge is that those who have the reins right now, and this current speaker, based on this absurd Israel in exchange for protecting billionaires bill, it suggests that this is going to be a problem. And again, the American people don't want that.
I just wanted to get you to clarify one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Before you said it, I know what you were saying, but I wanted to make sure that you're on the record as saying you would support that. You meant you would support a clean continuing resolution, because it came right after you said, well, the government's going to shut down. I would support that. So I just want to make sure that you meant, when you said that, you meant you'd support a clean continuing resolution.
We passed a bipartisan budget agreement in June, and we should pass a budget that aligns with that agreement. In the absence of that, we need another CR, a continuing resolution. We have one that got us a little bit of time until November 17th. And before November 17th and a government shutdown, we need another CR. I would support a clean CR to keep the government open.
Okay. Last question. When you took office, did you ever imagine that this is where it would be going, that this is what you'd have to deal with?
I ran because of January 6th and believing that our country was at a real inflection point, and that we needed people who were going to fight for our democracy and our freedom, and for an economy that was fixed, that wasn't rigged for those who already are doing really, really well, but that we take that broken economy and we make it work for working people. So I knew this was going to be intense, and it would be intense for years, if not longer. But in terms of the extremism and the fact that the extremists on the far right have as much power as they do, I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen, and it just means that we have to work harder.
Thanks for checking out the Local 12 YouTube channel. Click the links and tap subscribe to get notified anytime we post.